Next, we're going to talk about loan amortization. So when a mortgage loan is paid off through a series of regular payments, it is said to be amortized, which literally means killed off. In working checkpoint 1C, so in your book, if you work the extra checkpoints, it says we're used to present nearly $150,000 was saved when the mortgage was amortized over 15 years rather than over 30 years. So I just copied this part from your text just to kind of consolidate all the typing. So basically what it's saying is that if we have the loan for 15 years rather than 13 years, then the interest we pay over that time is going to be less. And that's kind of what I've been saying. So if you can shorten the length of your loan and decrease your interest rates, then you're going to save money in the long term. What adds to the interest cost is the long period over which the loan is financed. So again, the longer the loan, typically the more you're going to pay. Although each payment is the same, with each successive payment, the interest portion decreases and the portion applied towards paying off the principal increases. So what happens when you make a payment each month, as time goes on, more of your payment goes towards the principal and less goes towards the interest. The first, if you have about a 30-year loan, around the first 20 years, most of your payment is going towards interest on the loan because the loan amount is so large that it's just accumulating interest much faster in the beginning. And then at the end of the loan, more of your money is going towards the principal each month rather than interest. And we can see that in something called an amortization table or an amortization schedule. So we'll see that in a second. Now, interest is computed actually using the simple interest formula that we've seen before. And the T here is 1/12 of a year because we're doing it for just 1 month at a time, right? So there's 12 months in a year, so the time would be for 1/12. Here you have a setup for us doing our computations here for that amortization schedule. But you can get these a lot of times online as well. So Bankrate is one of the websites that I've shown you guys. They have a mortgage calculator there as well, specifically for mortgages. And within there, they'll actually show you the amortization schedule. So you can see each month the breakdown for your payment. So your payment each month, some goes towards interest and some goes towards principal. So you can see that actually that breakdown through the 30 years. We're just going to do the first couple payments here. All right, so we're going to prepare a loan amortization schedule for the first 2 months of the mortgage loan shown in the table below, and we're going to round entries to the nearest cent, so to 2 decimal places. So I know the rate, I know the mortgage amount, so that's the loan amount. We're going to make 180 payments. We have a monthly payment of $1357.50, and overall it's going to be a 15-year loan. So they've already done the monthly payment for us, so we already know this information. So I'm going to start with month 1. So the first we need to figure out is the interest that we're going to pay. So to do this, you use the simple interest formula that we learned a few sections ago. I equals PRT that we've seen before. So our principal here is going to be your loan amount. So our principal in this case is that $130,000 loan amount. Again, we're just starting. It's our first payment. We just bought the house, first payment. The rate is that 0.095. So again, you take that decimal point, move it 2 spots to the left. And now your time here is 1/12 because we're just doing it for 1 month, right? You make your payments every month. So only 1 month has gone by, which is 1/12 of the year. And when you multiply that out, I'm going to round to 2 decimal places here. You get $1,029.17. So we want to know how much is actually going towards the principal or the loan amount, right? So your principal is your loan amount. So your principal payment, so this is kind of part 1. What you're going to do is you're going to take your monthly payment and you're going to subtract the interest that you just computed. So our monthly payment here is $1357.50, and the interest that we're paying the first month is $1,029.17. So what you have left over is $328.33. So what we have here is that for our first month's payment, when we pay the bank that $13,057.50, $328 is actually going towards the loan amount of $130,000, and over $1,000 is going towards interest. So your beginning payments, particularly the first approximately 20 years of a 30-year loan, this is 15 years, so I don't know, I'm guessing maybe like 8 or 10 years, at least the first half, most of your money is going towards interest in each of those payments. So our loan balance then is going to be the principal balance. So the previous balance for the loan, which is $130,000 for the first month, minus the principal payment. So minus that 328.33. And what we get is $129,671.67. So at the end of the first month, you only owe $129,671.67 on your mortgage. So you take a little bit off that principal. And now we're going to do the same thing again. Now you want to be careful because month 2 is actually going to be different. It's not the same calculation. And the reason is because you don't have the same principal anymore. Now this is our principal, right? So our principal has gone down. So your p-value here is the 129,671.67. Everything else stays the same. The rate and the 112 stay the same. It's a fixed, we're going to assume it's a fixed rate here. And let's see, we get about $1,026.57. So for the principal payment, our monthly payment is still $1,357, so that's not changing. And the amount to interest is $1,026.57. So we get $330.93. And I want you to notice here that with your second payment, now a lot still goes to interest, over $1,000, but it's less than the month before, right? And now a little bit more goes towards your principal. And the reason this happens is because your principal is less. So every time you make a payment, that principal goes down a little bit. So you have less interest and then more money going towards the principal. So it takes a really long time for this to flip, where you actually have more money going towards principal and less towards interest. But you can see that it does change little by little every single month. So our loan balance, now it was $129,671.67, and $330.93 is going towards the principal. So our new balance is $129,340.74. And you can see that it went down again, right? So you can see every month that you make that payment, the loan amount is going down little by little by little. This is a 15-year loan, though, so it's going to take 15 years for this to pay off, which is why you see such little change each month, right? And with 30 years, it's even smaller, right? Because it's taking longer. Now, if you want to see more of the amortization schedule, I suggest you check out your book on page 558. It goes through a couple different payments. It does the first 4 months, then it skips to month 30, month 31, and then months 125, 126, 179, and 180. So you can kind of see how it changes there. And you'll see that as you get towards the end of the loan, much more of your money is going to principal and much less is going towards interest. So it does flip. So the last thing you really want to think about here, which is maybe the most important thing, or not the last thing, but the last kind of major topic and example, is what you can afford, right? So here's some suggestion from financial advisors. So financial advisors suggest that you spend no more than 28% of your gross monthly income on your mortgage payment, right? Or your rent, same idea, whatever you're paying for housing. 28% of your gross, so not your net, your gross monthly income, that should be the max for how much you're spending on housing. And then you should spend no more than 36% altogether on any monthly debt, including mortgage payments, car payments, credit card bills, student loans, and medical debt. So any debt, so credit cards, loans, anything like that should be no more than 36% of your income. That's their suggestion. Now, again, your personal situation could change, could vary based on this, right? So If you're young and you're still living at home, then maybe you're willing to put, if you have a lot more debt, you know, if you're not working full time yet, then you could be in a different situation, right? But if you're out on your own, you're really trying to plan for the future, you want to keep these amounts lower. Because keep in mind, you have other things to pay for too, right? You got to pay for your utilities, your water bills, potentially. Obviously, heat is part of that too. Food, clothes, transportation, etc. So there's a lot of other expenses you have to pay for. And then here are just some general guidelines using these percents. So let's say you make $20,000 a year for your gross annual income, again, not net, your gross. Then your monthly mortgage payment should be at max 467, and all your credit payments, so your loans and your credit cards, should be at most 600. If you make $100,000 a year, your max mortgage payment should be around 2,333, and all your debt should be at the most $3,000 a month. So again, it just gives you some sort of idea of, think about how much you can afford. So suppose your gross annual income is 25,000. Now, 25,000 is not in my chart. That number is not already done for me, so I got to figure it out. So for your mortgage, remember, and you could also kind of transfer this idea to rent as well. 28% was that max number that you should spend. So in decimal form, this is 0.28. So we're going to take that 0.28 and we're going to multiply it by our $25,000. And let's see what we get there. Oh, I'm skipping ahead. Let's see. Okay, so 28% times 25,000. Sorry, let me get my, skipping ahead a little bit, but that's okay. Okay. So what we get here is we get 7,000. Now remember, that's for the whole year, right? So because that's your gross annual income. So per month, you're not spending $7,000 a month. You're going to divide that by 12. So what we get when we divide it by 12 is we get about $583.33. Okay, so that's going to be our value there. Now, the way your book does it, just as a side note, what they do is they take that 25,000 first, divide it by 12 to figure out what your monthly income is, and then they go ahead and multiply that by the 0.28. But in either case, you're going to still get about that point at $583. So you can do it in either order. Okay, so I've gone through the second example here too. So for the second one, we're looking at our total credit obligations, and the percent they gave us was 36%. So I'm just getting those from up top here. So what I did here is I changed that 36% to 0.36. I multiplied by the 25,000 income a year, which is 9,000. And then I divided that by 12 to get the 750. So 750 is the max this person should be spending per month on all credit debt. So any sort of loan or credit card payment. The way that your book does it is they do it the opposite way, which is totally fine. They're both good. So you could take that 25,000 divide by 12 first to get your approximate monthly income. And then 36% of that comes out to be the same 750. So again, we have a little bit of rounding error there because when you do 25,000 divided by 12, you have to round a little bit. Okay, so you can see here that they did round there, so that's why you have that little bit of rounding error here. But they're both good ways to do it. All right, so part C now. If your monthly mortgage payment is 80% of the maximum amount you can afford, what is the maximum amount you should spend each month for all other debt? So let's break this one down a little bit. So the first thing we know is that our mortgage is 80% of the maximum. So 80% is 0.80, again, moving that decimal 2 spots left. And the maximum for our mortgage is 583 from part A. I'm just going to round to the nearest whole number here, which is what your book does. So we get about $466. So this person is not using the full max amount here. They're going a little bit less than that, and they're getting about $466 a month for their mortgage or maybe for their rent. So our question is, well, how much could they spend for their other debt then? Well, total debt is at most $750. And now their mortgage is $466. So if we subtract that, we get $284 altogether. So this is how much is left to spend on the other debt. So any other loans that they have per month. So it could be student loans, it could be a car payment, credit card payments, things like that would be 284. So again, these charts and these percents are just there to help you stay on budget. Now I know everybody's different, so you may have a different idea in mind, and you don't have to max out too. If you say, 28%, that's too much for me, then you don't do the full 28%. These are just meant to be kind of general guidelines that you can use when you're first trying to figure out that budget. All right, a couple of little things we'll talk about, and then we'll move on. So renting versus buying. So nearly everyone is faced at some stage in the life with the dilemma of, should I rent or should I buy? The rent or buy decision can be highly complex and is often based on lifestyle rather than finances. So aside from a changing economic climate, there are many factors to consider, and here are some advantages of both. So with renting, you often do not have a down payment or points to be required, right? You often do have a security deposit you have to put down, or sometimes first and last month's rent. So you may have to pay a couple months rent. So a lot of places require first and last month's rent plus a security deposit, which is equal to another month's rent. So it's not unusual to have to pay 3 months rent at one time when you first move in. It allows you to be very mobile, so you can easily relocate or move as often as you like. Most leases end after a year, although some are more flexible. It does not tie up hundreds of thousands of dollars that might be invested more safely elsewhere, right? So most financial advisors agree that you should buy a home because you want to live in it, not because you want to fund your retirement. It does not clutter what you can afford for your total monthly debt with mortgage payments. So, if you're paying rent and it is less than what you would pay for a mortgage, and that's going to help too. So I will say I do disagree a little bit with this. So when you think about what you can afford with your debts and things like this, I would still count your rent in there as that 28%. So yes, it's not really a debt that you're paying, right? You're paying rent, but when you budget your money, I would still count that rent as the 28% personally. From my opinion. Sometimes you can get amenities like swimming pools, tennis courts, and health clubs, or a gym. It avoids the risk of falling house prices, so you don't have to worry about the housing market. It doesn't require you to make home repairs, maintenance, or typically do groundskeeping. So if something breaks, you would call the owner of the house, and they would typically come fix it. Once in a while, depending on your lease and your contract there, you may be required to do some sort of maintenance, but that would say it in your lease. So I know I did rent once, and one of my apartments I rented at required that we were responsible for our own snow removal. So we had to shovel our own driveway and sidewalks because normally the owner is responsible for stuff like that. You don't have to pay property taxes. And generally, it's less costly than buying a home when staying it for fewer than 3 years. So that's just some positives to renting. So for home ownership, some positives would be peace of mind and stability, providing significant tax advantages, including deduction of mortgage interest and property taxes. So you do get deductions there. There's no chance of rent increasing over time, or just your owner deciding that they don't want to rent anymore, right? Because you usually have to renew your lease every year. You can build up equity, which is the difference between the home's value and what you own the mortgage as the mortgage is paid off. And the possibility of home appreciation is a potential source of cash. You can take out a home equity loan against that to help pay maybe for your children to go to college or pay for payments. It is still like another loan though, so just keep that in mind when you take out a home equity loan. It's still a loan. And when looking at 7-year timeframes, the total cost of renting, monthly rent, renter's insurance, loss of potential interest on security deposits is more than twice the cost of buying a home, buying for homeowners who itemize their tax deductions. So again, there's pros and cons to both. It really depends on what you're looking for in your lifestyle, I think, and what your finances are are looking for as well. So just a couple things to keep in mind, things that you can do to reduce your rental costs. So maybe you have a long-term goal that you would like to eventually own a home, but you're going to rent right now, which is what a lot of people do. And there are things you could do to help. So you could also select a lower cost rental. So who says you need to begin with your career in a fancy large apartment with lots of amenities and parking spots and lakefront views, right? So think about what you actually can afford. It doesn't have to be the fanciest thing. Obviously, you want it to be safe and healthy and everything, but it doesn't have to be the most expensive rental, right? Um, and then you could have more money that you can save for your house or for vacation or for whatever else you want to do. You can negotiate your rental increases. So landlords do not want to lose good tenants who are respectful of their property and pay rent on time. And filling vacancies can be time consuming and costly. So a lot of times your rentals do go up in price. Sometimes yearly when you re-sign your lease, or sometimes your landlord may wait a couple of years before increasing rent. So if the landlord is trying to increase rent and you have been a good tenant, you could discuss with them about potentially not increasing the rent. Would they consider doing that for you, or maybe only increasing it a little bit? I know my husband and I, when we rented one apartment, our rent had gone up, was going to go up significantly the next year, an extra almost $200 a month, which is a lot of money. And we were able to negotiate a smaller increase instead because we had been good tenants. And then you can also think about renting a larger place with roommates. So if you have roommates, it helps share the cost of the rental, of course, and it also helps to share utilities, which a lot of people forget, right? So you're sharing the cable bill, the heating bill, electricity bill, anything else that you're paying for. So if you have roommates and you are happy to live with roommates and comfortable with that, then you could also save money, not just on the rental, but on utilities too. So just some tips from Blitzer there on ways that you can help reduce some of your costs and put more towards savings.